Right, so this video is based on exchange rates and it's looking at specifically fixed exchange rates. So what a fixed exchange rate is, it's a regime that's applied by the government and the central bank that ties the country's official currency exchange rate to that of another country's currency. Sometimes it's by the price of gold, but usually in this time of age, it's usually the other country's currency. Now, the purpose of a fixed exchange rate is to keep a currency's value within a narrow band, okay? And what I mean by that is, let's imagine you've got a country who they carry out a lot of international trade with a major trading partner. And they want that certainty. They want to make sure that their domestic firms know what the price will be when they're, for example, importing. And because of that, they want to provide that stability, and therefore they'll peg their currency to that of another country's at a certain rate. Now, within this video, we'll look at benefits, we'll look at drawbacks, but we'll also look at examples. And behind me, as you can see, you've got two flags. You've got a flag of Bulgaria and a flag of Croatia. And they currently, they peg their exchange rate to the euro. And again, within this video, we'll look at the reasons why. But to begin with, let's have a look at the diagram. So let's have a hypothetical scenario where we've got the pound and we've got the US dollar. And let's imagine, I don't know, the exchange rate is £1 to 1.3 US dollars, okay, whatever it might be. And the UK are happy with that rate. Actually, that rate is really helping them with their biggest trading partner. And again, providing that stability to UK firms. Now, in order to do that, then obviously they have to fix it, and they have to fix it to that rate. Now, how it should happen is they should negotiate with America, and they should negotiate that rate. And the reason why they should do that, I'm going to cover in another video, which is based on Black Wednesday. But let's imagine that they've negotiated it and they've agreed on that rate. All right. Now, in terms of, let's imagine that something happened and it appreciated the UK pound. That obviously is now away from that rate and that fixed rate. So the central bank needs to intervene, and it'll be the central bank's job to intervene to try and bring it back to that fixed rate. And what the central bank use is reserves. They've got reserves of their own pound currency, and they've got reserves of foreign currency as well. And they will continuously use those reserves to get it in line with the fixed rate that they've agreed. Now, in this scenario, the pounds appreciate against the dollar, so what they'll have to do is they'll have to use their own currency reserves, the pounds, and they'll have to supply it to the forex, and in doing so, what it'll do is obviously it'll bring it back down. Now, the reason why they have to supply it is because then they have to demand more dollars, and it will continuously mean that they're having to possibly demand the currency that they're obviously pegging it to, or supplying their own currency, and it is expensive, and it's expensive for the central bank, and that's one of the issues that we will look at. Now, let's imagine this exchange rate, it wasn't what they wanted, and they wanted it to be a stronger rate, a higher rate. Again, they can do that. It would just require that intervention. Or maybe they want it to be a lower and a weaker point. Again, they can do that. It's just up to that intervention by the central bank to be able to, I suppose, choose a rate which is preferential to what they're trying to achieve. Now, a historical example is Bretton Woods in 1944, and it was the Bretton Woods system, and it was when the World War II was ending, and as it says there, 44 countries met at Bretton Woods in the US. It was led by Keynes, and what they decided was for a lot of European countries to fix their rate to the US dollar. The US dollar was seen to be a strong currency at that point, and it was agreed, and it was also the time where the IMF and the World Bank was created as well. Now, I'm not going to delve too much into that, but within the Bretton Woods system, you'll be able to look at, again, if you do your research, it didn't really end that well. What happened was the European countries were too dependent on the US for importing goods because their productive capacity had been hit so hard by the war, and in doing so it caused problems because they were having to demand more and more US dollars in order to buy their goods, and that was messing up the exchange rate and putting more pressure on the intervention. But again, I'm not going to delve too much into that. A more recent example, if we have a look at the ERM, so it's the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, and if we look at since the euro has been established now, it's the ERM2, and the ERM2 is for those countries that are possibly looking to maybe convert their currency or adopt the euro. All right, so When in the previous slide we looked at Bulgaria and we looked at Croatia, they are part of the ERM2 at this moment in time. And the whole idea is to set them up for when they do get the euro. Because if they peg their currency to the euro, then it helps with the convergence criteria and the euro conversion rates for when they actually do get the euro. It's not going to be a big shock to their system. So as I've said there, the ERM was established in 1979. So it was established a long time before the euro was ever created. But it always, from 1999, the original members of the euro converted from their home currencies at the then current ERM central rate to prepare for the euro. And the euro itself trades freely against other major currencies. So I've already done a video based on a free floating exchange rate. The euro is part of that. But other countries, such as the ones who are wanting to adopt the euro, they are part of the ERM and they peg and fix their exchange rate to the euro in preparation. So as we've got there, and this is from the EU's website in terms of the ERM2 process, and it says here the Bulgarian levy has been successfully pegged to the euro at a fixed rate since 1997. Croatia, they're doing so, but they're a little bit late to join the EU. But the whole idea of it is price stability, sustainable public finances, convergence, sustainability, but as we can see there, the exchange rate stability as well. And the whole idea is to make sure that it's as stable and as in line with the euro as possible for when they do adopt the euro. Now, the reasons why you fix the exchange rate, as I've said before, is used to stabilise the value of a currency against the currency with which the country is a key trading partner. If you know that you do a lot of trade with another country, and you are almost dependent on that other country, and that might be in terms of importing, it might be in terms of exporting, you want to try and provide that certainty. So let's imagine that you import from another country, and therefore those imports are going to be a cost for that country's firms. So let's imagine the UK, they've pegged it and they fixed it on the German Deutschmark like before in the 1990s, early 90s. The reason why they might do that is they might have imported a lot from Germany, and therefore to help UK firms understand what their costs are going to be of importing from Germany, that will keep it stable. Or let's imagine you're in a situation where you export, and you export a lot to that other country. Therefore, you're helping that other country's customers understand what the cost is going to be, which then should provide that loyalty and make sure that they continue to buy from you. And it just helps your competitiveness within that market. So by reducing uncertainty for businesses who require imports or look to export, it should continue with that international trading relationship. However, it does have limitations, it does have issues, and even though it offers stability, currency, it is at risk of speculation because it is a hard task to peg and fix your exchange rate to that of another currency. And Black Wednesday is a prime example of that. So it's when the video is obviously put onto YouTube, it's definitely worth watching. But when you're doing that, and if you're not doing it successfully and you're not following what you should be to make sure it's fixed, like the UK not increasing their interest rates like Germany did, then it obviously means that all of a sudden that whole fixed agreement comes under threat. And when speculators and currency traders start to understand that actually there are issues with the rate, then they can speculate and they can act on it, and that can make it even harder to fix it at that exchange rate. It also means that you are much less flexible and there might be conflicts of other macroeconomic objectives. So in terms of, for example, the interest rate, if you want to be part of the ERM, then you need to follow the Eurozone's interest rate policy. Now, straight away that means, well, what about your domestic policies? So let's say if the Eurozone decide to increase interest rates, as I said before, with Germany and the UK with Black Wednesday, well, that means that your country, as part of the ERM, you have agreed to also increase your interest rates as well. But what happens if at the moment there's a housing market issue? And let's imagine that the housing market is crashing, it's falling. You don't want to increase interest rates because that's going to make it even worse. But you are forced to because of that arrangement. And that's what I mean in terms of being less flexible and conflicting with other macroeconomic objectives.